This is the Eat Sleep Softball Repeat project video for the kit from Awesome Life Craft. This is a door hanging kit and it comes with everything um, you need in terms of the wood items and the words to complete this project. Some additional items that you will need will be the paint. So whatever paint color of your choice for the letters. As you see here, I'm painting the letters black. It stands out really nicely on the softball. The softball color is going to be like a neon yellow. And this neon yellow that I chose for the project, even though you can't really see it that well, it has almost a greenish tint to it. And it actually worked really well for the softball. I used red paint for the seams, just straight red paint, but you could use any color you want. A nice neon pink would be really pretty, or any other color that matches what your team normally uses. You're also going to need a drill to drill the holes in the circle, and you'll need some craft glue to glue the letters onto the circle, and some craft wire or hardware wire, whatever. I get it from the hardware section, but I really like to use wire to hang these signs. The circle can be a little bit heavy and the wire is going to hold up, but you could also use rope or ribbon. I just find those a little bit harder to work with, and in the end you can always make a ribbon to add to the wire, and it will be a pretty sturdy hanger for the project. You will also need some craft brushes, some paint brushes. I've just used some cheap craft paint brushes for this project, and the bristles are pretty soft, and this is just a large flat brush that I'm painting this color with, and I'm painting the letters that you see here. I'm painting them on the back of the circle. So this is the back of the circle that I'm going to paint the yellow onto. But doing it this way really helps to use what I have right on hand to paint these letters and not allow the paint to get on any of my surfaces. All of the fonts are so pretty. I love the mix of fonts. These are large letters and they fit nicely in this 18-inch circle. To start out, I really like to start with the painting of the letters first. One, because it is kind of really soothing, and painting the letters black is also part of that. So like you could use any dark color and it would stand out well, but the black, especially the sides of the letters are cut with a laser. All the shapes are cut with a laser, so the edges are a little like black with soot, and when you paint the letters black, you don't have to worry about the paint like running over the edges and making it look bad. You also don't have to worry about painting the edges because the edges are already black, so it works out really nicely and you get a nice product. Also, painting the letters first gives you a nice confidence booster because it's so easy to do. You really can't mess it up. All the letters are pretty sturdy, even though they're held together or linked together with kind of really small parts that are connecting the letters to each other. They're surprisingly sturdy, even though they're relatively thin and have those small connecting lines. If you have your little player or a child who wants to help, this is a good stage to let them help, as long as they're old enough and can handle the brush and all of that. But they can paint these letters, and like I said, you can't really mess up, so this is a really good option to let them paint. Also, use the back of the circle, then they're not gonna hopefully get too much of a mess everywhere. One thing I like about the kit is that it comes with these pre-made fonts and pre-made sizes all together, so you don't have to think about what size font you need to order. and what it's going to look like in the kit. It's always sort of a guessing game when you have to do that. So having a kit where it's already selected for you really helps to know that you're going to be able to recreate the project exactly as you see it the first time without having to like reorder letters or words, or having parts that maybe you don't need because they don't fit. As you can see, the letters take kind of a chunk of time to paint. But like I said, that's okay because it's actually really soothing to paint these letters in the black. The black paint just goes on so smoothly. And this is just normal craft paint. It's nothing special. It's just kind of the cheap paint from Walmart that I'm using here. You can see it's covering really well in the black. Sometimes I don't even think I did a second coat on these. I just did one coat. It covered and it was nice. And this is the last word before moving on to the next step, which is to paint the circle. Now, I started by painting the circle with white spray paint, and at first I used the cheap white spray paint, and it took almost the entire bottle of spray paint in order to do 2 circles. So I was doing another project as I was doing this one at the same time. So I don't really recommend doing that again, although it did really, really help to have that base coat of spray paint. So if I had to do it again, I'm not sure I would use that kind. I would probably use a more expensive spray paint, the $5 instead of the $2 spray paint, so that it would get full coverage easier without using the whole bottle of spray paint. And that's it for these words. So after I did the spray paint on the circle, that's what you see here, I used just basic white house paint, like a house paint that had like a base in it. So it had a primer, that's the word. It came with a primer and the coat of white. It was pretty thick, and I just used a brush like a regular house painting brush for interiors, to brush on a coat of really thick paint over the top of the spray painted circle. It was pretty easy, pretty fast, and I think I only needed one extra coat. Yeah, so only one coat of white before I went on to the next step, which was to add my yellow. And you can see this is a really bright neon yellow here. Of course, I waited for all of the white paint to dry before I did this step, and then I used my another large house painting brush to brush this on, because otherwise it would have taken forever with a small brush. So I used a house painting brush, and this one's only maybe 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches of a brush. But as you can see, this paint is going a long way. It really, really helped to have the base coat of white on here, because without that, this color would have been a little bit darker. So it always helps if you're wanting a really bright color, or you're painting with a light color, to start with a base coat of white before you add your color onto the shape that you're trying to paint. I didn't have much of this yellow color left, and I was really worried I would run out, and that's why you see 2 different yellows there. But fortunately, the paint really went a long way. Again, this is just craft paint from the craft store or Walmart, I'm not sure which, and it had great coverage. So depending on what brand you choose, it'll probably be great. It'll probably work really well. Like I said, this was not expensive paint. I think I only did one coat of this yellow, maybe 2. To get this full coverage, and it turned out really great. In the end, it dried really bright as well, so I was really happy with it overall. So the next step after this dries, I didn't want streaks, so I kept brushing and brushing, but after this dried, I placed my letters. So that part can be a little time consuming, so it's important to have them placed exactly where you think they should be in the end. And so, like, placing them and then stepping back and moving them. I actually had to spin the circle around because there was a spot where the yellow paint, I don't know what happened, but it was like kind of missing or a piece fell off. Um, and I just needed to cover that up with the words. So instead of trying to repaint with yellow, I just decided to cover it up. Now, this design that I'm painting here was actually really easy to do. I was a little worried about it at first, but I'm trying to stay about an inch and a half, 2 inches away from each of the words, and I'm following the shape of the words to create that like S snake shape. Um, I did it on one side, and then I decided to go ahead and do it on the other side to try to get them to match as best as I could. If I'd had a pencil when I was doing this, I probably would have used that to draw the lines first, but it did help to have a paintbrush that was slightly smaller than like the lines needed to be, because with that, it gave me a lot more leeway to draw the lines first and then thicken them up how I wanted them to be. And as you can see, they're not perfect. They don't match perfectly. They're not the same shape exactly. But I wanted it to look hand painted, and I wanted to give that effect of it being unique. So I wasn't so worried about that. It's hard to tell in the video, but I did have to go over these lines several times. Um, the red looks a little brighter than it did in real life. In the video, it looks like it's sort of pink, but in real life, it's definitely red, and it looked really good. It looked really good being red. If this was the hot pink, I probably could have used the red for the base coat and then gone back over it in hot pink if I wanted that hot pink color, and it would have like given a base to the hot pink that would have allowed it to be like a dark pink versus a really light pink that was sort of off and not very, hot pinkish. I could have done that, but I really liked the red. I liked how it turned out. Um, Here, I was just worried about getting that initial shape down, making sure they matched. And then also here, I'm thickening up the line so that it is more tapered at the top and bottom and not as thick, and then thicker through the center part. So I'm just pressing the brush a little bit harder and allowing the paint to thicken up that middle part of the line. And here in this video, I think this is all real speed, real time. It's not being sped up. I wanted to give sort of an accurate view of how quickly this process took. It actually went really fast, and this part was really fun. I really enjoyed doing it. Now, to do this, the trick is at the top of the line, and I'm doing the outer section first. This entire line is like kind of feathered out, so all of the lines are angled, and they have like an angle that is upwards, sort of like a V. You're making a V, and at the very top, the lines are closer together, and they're shorter. And as you go down the line, they get further apart and they're longer. You could go as much as maybe 2 inches away from the line. And then as you go down toward the bottom, you again start to get really like shorter distances between your lines, and the lines get shorter. This gives the effect of having it look like a real 3D rounded baseball. And also, it's very forgiving. It's very easy to do, and you don't have to worry about like what is it going to look like. as long as you kind of follow those simple rules, it'll be fine. So here I'm just going through and I'm thickening up these lines. You can't really tell from the video, but they needed to be a little thicker. They were a little too see-through. And so this is sort of just a second coat on top of what I've already done so that those lines are thicker. So I'm just working at the bottom, making it a little bit more tapered and starting on the next lines. So the interior lines are not as angled as the exterior lines are. The interior lines sort of are less V-shaped, or they can be less V-shaped. Here I'm making them pretty V-shaped, as you can see. I didn't really mean to. I meant them for them to be more straight, as in like parallel lines, parallel in terms of the words. But these are also V'd out a little bit more, and it doesn't have to be anything close to what you would think perfect is. Also, I'm very careful not to bump into the words. I have my placement, basically how I want it to be, and I'm trying not to knock the words around or anything like that. So in terms of being careful, that's pretty much what I'm being careful for. Painting these actual lines, I really did not have to be that careful at all. Some of these brush strokes, are very, very fast and quick. Again, I'm using the other lines as my guide, so the lines are matching up to be a V, but in certain points that didn't happen either, and I kind of messed up where my placement was. In the end, you can't tell the difference. Like I said, this is a very, very forgiving project because there's just so much going on in the scenes that you would never be able to tell unless you sat there and counted. And that's really not the point. Point, is with these words here that you're reading. So reading the words distracts you from all of those little lines. Even the thickness of those seam lines is varying. They're not all the same. Some lines are thicker, some are thinner, some taper at the bottom, others taper at the top. In the end, it really didn't matter. I was prepared to paint all of these and then have to paint over them and start again because I didn't have a pencil to draw these out. And I was a little worried about it before I got started, but I decided to just go for it, and it was really fun and it turned out great. So here I'm on the other side. I am trying to watch what I'm doing in terms of like the spacing and the thickness and the size of those lines based off of what is on the outside edge of the other curve. So I'm still going on this outside edge and intentionally trying to make these a V shape. And I'm trying to make the lines longer in the center area of that curve and shorter and closer together as I get near the ends. And I think it worked out a little better. I had a little bit of practice on that other side. So the ones on this side are a little bit more evenly spaced. Maybe that helped the overall project. Maybe not. It probably doesn't matter. And then going back and I'm thickening up these lines again. Thickening them and also just making sure they have like enough paint there that they're not see-through. Because it did need that, even though you can't really tell. So as I go down the center, other side, and you can see it looks great just like that. Like you don't even have to do all of the lines. You can really make this project your own and just do the outside seam or just do the inside, whatever you want to do. For the inside seam, I will say that normally those seams would have been bigger, but in order to match up with what was on the outside, but they're not because the words are in the way. And so I'm stopping before I get to the words. So the words are sort of cutting off my my inside seams there, and I did that on both sides. It turns out fine. It turns out okay to do that, and I think it looks better because you're not having it be too busy because the lines are stopping a far enough distance away from the words. Again, I'm making sure not to bump into the letters so that they don't move. If they did, it would be okay. If there were any paint that smears, that would be okay. I would just pick everything up, wipe it off with a rag, and if I had to, I would just paint over it. It's okay. If you make a mistake, you can just paint over it. Let it dry and paint over it. You can see here, it doesn't match perfectly on both sides. It kind of looks all over the place. In the end, I'm just like tapering the bottom, and the top is already like as a little closer to the edge than I had intended originally. But I'm tapering the bottom edges. And then again, going back in with another coat of the red, you can definitely see that it is making the red stand out a little bit more. So I had to let the seams dry and then go back in with that other coat of red. And I almost didn't let it dry enough, so that's why it's taking even longer to do. But you can see how nice it looks once that second coat is added. It definitely needed a second coat. So after this step, the next step is to glue the letters down. So I let this dry completely, let all of the seams dry, and then I'm just checking my placement again, and going with the softball word first. I'm just taking this is normal craft glue. It's the cheap version from like the Dollar Tree. I like to use clear craft glue because it gives me a better idea that it is going to be clear when it goes on, like what it's going to look like in the end. And then I'm taking a wet paintbrush. This is just really an old one. It doesn't really matter what kind you use, but kind of a thin, old paintbrush. And where there's excess glue, I'm just wiping it off. I don't really know what would happen if I left that there and what it would look like. You sort of know what it looks like when glue pools and then dries really thick, and I just didn't want that. So I'm using just clear, clean water and brushing those edges off, and then kind of like rinsing the brush again and going back over it. So I'm basically just painting with water to remove that excess glue. So I started with softball in the middle because that's a good like anchor point. I didn't want to start with the top or the bottom word. Wanted to start with one of those in the middle. Softball is kind of the best one for an anchor. Then I did repeat next because that again is with that anchor of softball, it's really easy to add the repeat. Next I did sleep, and you can see it's a little like off kilter, which is fine because this is supposed to be a curved surface. This is a ball, a complete sphere. So anything on a sphere is not gonna be exactly right. So when you have little angles in there, especially when you're sort of trying to get it straight, but not really, then that's like, it ends up looking correct. And so that's why all of it turns out right in the end as well. So here I'm trying to find the best placement to drill these holes. So this is a pretty large drill bit. It's big enough for my craft wire, which is a pretty heavy gauge wire. So it's a heavy wire. It's going to hold this up really well. The wire's not, super big, but I'm freehanding this placement. I needed about an inch from the edge, and I'm placing it on each side of the eat. So the edge to the right and the edge to the left. And I'm just gonna eyeball it. If I'd had a pencil, I probably would have used a pencil. I also messed up with the drill bit, and so here I'm going back and painting the circle with a little bit more yellow. Um, when I did this with another project that was a baseball, the base coat was white, so it didn't really matter. Like I didn't have to do that with my like touch-up paint after I drilled those holes. Now I am placing the craft wire through the holes. I just cut off kind of a small section. I don't want like a really large hanger. So this is up to you, your preference of how long you want the hanger to be. But I just place it through, and then I'm using wire cutters, not even pliers. I'm having to carefully use wire cutters to twist the ends of the wire around the hanger. So I just went around 2 or 3 times, and then I'm snipping it off. So where it's snipped is going to be a little bit rough, a little sharp. Just trying to snip it as close as possible to the side, and then kind of like smash it or bend it. The end, of course, the nice ending with my daughter saying ta-da. And here's the finished project.